idea?
An idea for the show.
I still don't know what the idea is.
It's about nothing.
Right.
Everybody's doing something. We'll do nothing.
They say, what's your show about? I say nothing.
There you go.
I think you may have something here.
Cross Coast Spice presents the League About Nothing podcast.
All right, welcome back, everybody. We've got our Week 7 recap here. Another exciting show. We have some trades to cover. We've got some big money spent on the waiver wire and a couple injuries to go over. We have 4 trades that have taken place since last week when we were discussing them. We're going to go mostly in chronological order, but there was one trade that was a little bit higher stakes than the other 3, so we're going to leave that discussion to the end. Which means that our first trade that we're going to cover is between JMC and our very own Alvarez 13. Lower stakes trade here. Again.
Hey, lower stakes. Watch it. This was a monumental trade.
So again, some just awful running backs changing hands here. You acquired Cordero Patterson, sending out PJ Walker and Matt Breida to JMC. Explain why you preferred Patterson to Breida.
Cordero Patterson is on a better offense. It's a better running game. I figured that JMC probably wanted Breida, his own handcuff, with Saquon.
The Saquon manager.
Saquon Barkley's been battling injuries on and off pretty much the entire season. So I'm sure he'd probably like to lock that spot up. He doesn't have a ton of depth. So at least if he can have his own handcuffs, it helps cover him a little bit. Me, on the other hand, I've had Matt Breida all year, and even when Saquon has missed time, he really hasn't done much. He hasn't even gotten in my terrible running back lineup. So I figured I'd try a different running back, consolidate the roster a little, open up a roster spot. I threw in PJ Walker, who's been getting starts on and off with Watson banged up all year. Again, he doesn't have the quarterback depth, so there's a chance that Walker will continue to play with Watson's mysterious ailments.
Yeah, that certainly is a strange situation there.
But really, I just wanted the handcuff in the better running environment. If Bijan or Tyler Algier get banged up, there's a role for Patterson. We saw it this week with Bijan battling migraines. Patterson had about a dozen touches. I'll take that on the bench.
Yeah, so like you said, it's in a better run game. It's a more running back friendly offense there. But I do want to quibble with you saying that Breida wouldn't make your lineup. Week 3, he had a 10.8. In week 4, he had a 14.3. I've seen your running back room.
He did make my lineup at least once. I know that for sure.
I'm not going to argue with you getting Patterson. We've seen him produce at a high level when given the opportunity in the past. But I'm going to defend Breida's honor.
All right, we've seen what happens with the Giants offense when Saquon Barkley is not in there. They pretty much just don't even try running. So
can you blame them? Would you be running Matt Breida?
When Matt Breida is your best option, it's probably better to not run the ball.
A good trade for both teams involved there. And JMC is also thin at that quarterback position, and who knows how long this issue with Watson lingers. Not that Walker is lighting up the scoreboard or anything, but having an additional player to get you a potential score there certainly helps.
Yeah, just to keep you from having a 0 in your quarterback spot.
A warm body.
Yeah.
Now that we've discussed trades with bad running backs, let's do it again. Our second trade involving you acquired... Shocking. Absolutely no one. You acquired Chase Edmonds, who's currently on IR, but I believe has been designated to return.
Yep.
And Darrell Henderson from Benign Rug, and you sent out Julius Chestnut, Ty Chandler, and a 2024 5th-round pick attached to Flea's team. So this is another just awful running back swap.
So here's my thinking. So Chestnut was on IR already. So I figured, well, I might as well swap Edmonds and Chestnut because I know that when Chestnut comes back, he's not going to have a role behind Henry and Spears. It'll take multiple injuries for him to get out there. Now, for Edmonds, he was working as the primary backup to Rachaad White before he went down. And as poorly as Rashad White has run the ball this year, his backups have been even worse. Keyshawn Vaughn and Sean Tucker have been atrocious. I think they're combining to average under 2 yards a carry. So it's been really bad. So there's a good chance that Edmonds comes back into some sort of role, at least when he gets back in the field. And he has been designated to return, so it's possible he could come back as soon as this week. But really what I was trying to do was get some part of the Rams backfield. I wasn't sure who was going to play. I wasn't sure if it was going to be Gaskins. I wasn't sure if it was going to be Henderson, Royce Freeman, Evans. I tried to trade for Evans. I tried to get Freeman off waivers. I tried to trade for Gaskin. I mean, I tried my best to get any of these guys. I just wanted someone because I didn't know who it was going to be. So I figured whoever the cheapest guy can get, and I'll take my chances. And the roulette wheel went in my favor this week, and Henderson actually put up a decent score.
Yeah, he had 18 carries and a catch, so 19 touches overall, all from not having been on a roster. That's a healthy workload.
Off the couch. I was not expecting that. That was a little more than than I was expecting. Really, I was just trying to get rid of Chandler, who was scoring 0 points for me, to get somebody who had a chance to score points. So it worked out for this week at least.
And Chandler actually had a long catch and run called back on an awful penalty this week too, I think.
Chandler has flashed when they give him opportunities. They just love to run Alexander Madison into the line for a 2-yard gain over and over.
Cam Akers also getting a decent amount of work there. He got 10 carries and another 3 targets this week. So
yeah, once Cam Akers showed up there, I knew that was the end of Ty Chandler.
Yeah,
I had originally acquired him thinking that, well, Alexander Madison is not good. So at some point, there may be an opportunity for Chandler to get some run, and you never know. He looked good in the preseason.
Yep,
if he did. Ripped off a few explosive plays, maybe he carves out a bigger piece of that committee. But when they traded for Cam Akers, I knew that was probably the end, at least for this season, for Ty Chandler. So I need players that are scoring points. I can't have zeros on my bench, especially at running back. I just don't have any good running backs. So I needed someone who was going to play. And I figured Henderson would be part of some kind of committee there.
Yeah. And we'll see if he holds on to the job going forward until Kyron comes back.
Yeah, who knows? I mean, with McVay and the roulette wheel, the Henderson could not be activated off the practice squad this week for all we know.
Yeah, next week it'll be...
That would not shock me.
Yeah, next week it'll be Leonard Fournette somehow.
Right.
So we have one more low-stakes trade here where Mr. Good News acquires Curtis Samuel and Benign Rug acquires Mike Williams. Mike Williams on IR, so obviously not helping Mr. Good News this year, and Rugg not really trying to compete, is probably trying to also shed some points by shipping out Samuel. It's just a good trade for both parties here. Good News gets a piece to help his stretch run. Rugg gets points off his roster and adds a potentially higher ceiling player for next year.
Yep, 100%. That's exactly what this trade was. I talked to both of these guys before and after this trade went down, and that's you nailed it. Yeah, one team is looking to unload points, and the other team is looking to unload players that are scoring 0. So it worked out for them.
I did try to acquire Mike Williams earlier in the year, but we were unfortunately unable to come to an agreement. Good to see that Rugg could step in and get a deal done.
I know you've also been trying to acquire Curtis Samuel, so
only since we started the league.
Unfortunately, they were swapped for each other.
You know I love Curtis Samuel, and he's good. I refuse to accept any other narrative.
I'm sure as soon as he goes on IR for the year, you'll be able to acquire him.
Oh, it's tough. Sad but true. My one concern with Williams coming back is that he's 29 years old right now. He's going to be 30 coming off an ACL, and that's probably not the greatest position to be in.
He's also probably going to be a free agent based on how his contract is structured.
Yeah, that's
maybe looking at a new team, maybe a 1-year prove-it deal. Mike Williams has been far more productive and shown a far higher ceiling than Curtis Samuel when healthy. It just hasn't been healthy very often.
I wouldn't be shocked to see Williams on a new team, but I also wouldn't be shocked to see him back if Quentin Johnson continues to struggle.
Yeah, that's probably the most likely scenario. I assume it's probably going to be a cold free agent market for a
Yeah.
older receiver coming off a major injury. He might just stick with the team that he's familiar with and they're familiar with him. But we'll see. A lot of it depends on, like you said, how Quentin Johnson develops over the back half of the year, and frankly, how Joshua Palmer continues to look. He's looked better than he has at any point in his career the last few weeks.
Yeah, he's been a lot better than I expected him to be. I pretty much ignored him in redraft waivers, and then all of a sudden,
me.
Yeah,
I've been watching him play too closely for several years, and he seems like a different player. I can't really explain it, but
development is not linear.
that's very true.
All right, so should we get to the that last headline trade?
The actual trade that matters? Yes,
Yep.
Let's do it.
All right, everyone, the long wait is over. I have reacquired Trent Sherfield. Last Wednesday, Flea and I made a trade. Pretty big budget one here. Flea got quite a few higher caliber players. She acquired Dak Prescott, DeAndre Hopkins, Evan Ingram, Romeo Doubs, and Elijah Mitchell to go along with a 2024 second round pick attached to Big's roster. And coming back my way, I acquired Anthony Richardson, Deion Jackson, Josiah DeGuara, Lil Jordan Humphrey, Trent Sherfield, and Flea's 2025 first round pick. Well, I'm not going to say it again. What do you think?
Blockbuster. That's the only word for this. If you're a competitive team, I mean, you're trying to compete in a deep best ball like this, this is exactly the type of move that you want to make. She acquired 4 players that are probably going to be in her lineup almost every week, and another 2 pieces that are very likely to be contributors as well. And she gave up a pick 2 years down the line.
Yep.
I mean, I know she gave up, obviously Anthony Richardson is the prize of this deal, but he's not helping her this year. He's on IR.
I already told you it's Trent Sherfield.
I mean, on your side, it's a bunch of garbage.
Yeah, it was really, it's Richardson in the first. And then I literally told her, whoever you're going to drop, just send him back my way. Those 4 players, the Sherfield, Humphrey, DeGuara, and Jackson were literally just the bottom of her roster. And I'll hold them and hopefully that someone comes into some value.
They are consequential only in the fact that she is replacing those zeros with
Yeah.
actual players that could score points every week for her. I mean, she really lengthened her lineup, deepened her bench with this move. And it was a necessary move if she wanted to stay in that competitive group, which she was already all in with her 24 picks. So might as well continue to stock the cupboards. As much as we love Anthony Richardson, and he's really the prize of this deal, Richardson and the future first are probably the 2 most valuable picks in the deal. But to get 6 useful pieces for 2 in a best ball like this, that's something that you need to do if you want to really push your chips in and win.
The extra pieces in her lineup that can actually be in her lineup, like you said, over these 4 guys. Of the 4 actual players she sent out outside of Richardson, the highest weekly score on the season, there was only 1 double-digit performance among all 4 players. That was a 10.9 from Josiah DeGuara in week 4. The highest outside of that is under 5 points. So those guys, as you said, were complete non-contributors. And now she's adding other guys who are going to make the roster on a every week basis.
I'm assuming that was the thought process when you guys were negotiating.
Yeah,
giving as many starting pieces as possible for these 2 big chips. And she cashed in her last 2 real major chips. So she does have that second that she got in this deal as well that she could turn into another player.
Yeah, and
she may not be done adding.
I was going to say that was what I said when I was sending the second back. I'm like, listen, you can take the pick, you can buy another piece. And I mean, obviously she knows that. She doesn't need me to tell her that. But like a second round pick in this year's draft compared to that first round pick 2 years out, it's the value is lower, obviously, but the immediacy helps you a little bit more.
Time value of money and all that.
Exactly.
And then obviously from your side, I mean, you did well to move off of some aging assets, guys with questionable value going forward. There's a lot of guys here that are contributing now, but by the time you're ready to compete again, which is probably going to be after 2025, there's a chance that most of these guys are no longer coveted or producing assets.
Yeah.
So to be able to get a guy like Anthony Richardson, who has quarterback 1 overall upside, he's not going to score you any points this year, which helps your draft pick.
Yep.
But he gives you a very high ceiling for your quarterback 2 going forward.
Well, that, and he also gives me a little bit of flexibility in next year's draft, in this 2024 draft, where if I had traded away Dak Prescott and not gotten back a quarterback, I'm almost forced to draft a quarterback. I'm looking like I'm likely to be the 103 with my first round pick. If I don't have a second quarterback, I'm almost forced into taking a quarterback there. I don't have to, especially because I have the additional picks in 25. But you really want to know if you've got a guy at quarterback as soon as possible. And having Richardson, we've only seen him for a few games and everything, but we've seen the ceiling, we've seen the flashes. It makes it so that I have a little bit more flexibility, in my opinion, in this year's upcoming draft. I can just go best player available.
And especially when you've already got a guy like Patrick Mahomes locked in as your QB1.
Yeah.
You can
that
afford
helps.
you can afford to really shoot for the ceiling with your quarterback 2. You have the potential to have quarterback 1 and quarterback 2 overall by the time you're competing in 2025. So
it's too late. I already traded away Kirk Cousins.
QB1 in our hearts.
Moving from trades over to the waiver section, we had one massive bid this week where Criddle got Julio Jones added to his roster for a bid of 57 fab, beating out Mel with the second highest bid at 11. You had the third highest bid at 8, and I had the fourth highest and only other bid at $1. Now, all of you are insane. Clearly, this is a $1 player. No, I'm just kidding.
That was the highest bid of the season so far.
Yeah, no, it was
edging out the Trevor Siemian $51 bid. Hopefully, this one works out better. I saw that MrGoodnews recently sent Trevor Siemian back to waivers.
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously with Zach Wilson playing the way he is, who needs him?
At least with Julio, we know he's locked into a role. They signed him to the practice squad, and he was immediately elevated. He played.
Yep.
He played as less than a week after they signed him.
Yeah, only the one catch, but obviously he's can't have a full grasp on the offense just yet.
Yeah, he was out there for about a dozen snaps. They're definitely going to use him in their 3-wide sets with Quez Watkins on IR and your favorite player, Olamide Zaccheaus, not really contributing much to the passing game.
How dare you?
As much as I like Zaccheaus, Julio Jones is probably an upgrade. I think the biggest part of this move is adding Julio to 3 wide receiver sets allows Devonta Smith to work more in the slot. He's had a down couple of weeks in a row with A.J. Brown just dominating. I think being able to move him into the slot, even if it's only for 20 to 30 snaps a game, I think that will help kind of free him up and get him going.
Yeah, it seems like he was the guy for first few games of the year, and then the script kind of flipped back to A.J. Brown being the dominant force there. Let me see.
Yeah, having Julio out there, especially in the red zone. I know he doesn't ever score touchdowns.
I was going to say, yes, Julio Jones
draws a lot of coverage.
Scorer.
He draws a lot of coverage away in the red zone. That will probably free up other guys.
You always hear the term gravity applied to guys like Tyreek Hill, but Julio does have a gravity of his own as well. It's a different kind, but it's there.
Yeah, he's old now, and he hasn't been healthy in a long time. But we saw flashes, especially last year in the Bucs playoff game. He certainly flashed old Julio at times. So if they can just kind of manage him and get him out there for 20 snaps a game, he could definitely be a contributor for them.
It'll be fun to watch. I know I'm not quite the same level of fan of Julio as you are, but I've always thought he was one of the most talented wide receivers I've ever watched. So even at this later stage, it should be fun to have him back in the league. Congrats to Criddle on winning that bid. Hopefully pans out for you. Although I got to say, it does surprise me that Criddle is going that hard on a player like Julio when he's kind of, sort of, mostly started looking towards next year.
Yeah, but you know who Julio signed with, right?
Yes, that's a fair point. so really what you're telling me is that this is Mr. Good News dropping the ball.
Yeah, exactly.
What a disappointment. All right, so outside of Julio, there was actually a good amount of movement on waivers. We had several running backs go in the $6, $7 range. Also, Ray McLeod went to Judd for $6. He edged out me bidding $1. So,
yeah, with Ray last week when Debo got hurt, Ray McLeod took over that role. But yeah, I guess they saw enough on tape that this week the actual game plan did not include very much Ray McLeod. They just kind of gave Juwan Jennings the Debo.
I was gonna say, you know who it did include though.
They saw enough Ray McLeod, I guess.
I hit my Juwan Jennings over bet in the first quarter of that game.
He had 9 targets.
He had a good game. I literally have been telling you this for years. He's not a bad player. He's buried behind guys like Debo and Ayuk and George Kittle.
I think that running your offense through Juwan Jennings probably contributed to them losing to the Vikings. So I wouldn't get too excited. The offense looked good when they were running it through Brandon Ayuk in the first half. Then they decided to funnel targets to Juwan Jennings in the second half, and they couldn't move the ball. So I don't know if that's connected or coincidence.
Yeah,
I'll let you decide.
It was strange that Ayuk essentially disappeared out of that game. I don't know what happened there. I don't know if that was defensive scheming or if that was just something else entirely. The other running backs that went on waivers. Myles Gaskin went for $7 to my team. I outbid you by $6. You were the only other bid at $1. Damian Williams went to my team for $6, outbidding you at 0 and Mel at 2. Both of those players available for anyone who comes knocking. Judd picked up Royce Freeman for $6. Stop me if you've heard the $6 bid before. There was another bid on that one. Yours at $1.
I told you I tried to get all the Rams running backs I could. I wasn't sure who was going to play. I tried to get everybody. I tried to get everyone cheap. Fair
enough. Amari Rogers, who had a 26% snap share this week, went to you for $0. A nice foresight on your part to see that he'd have that increased role. Unfortunately, it didn't really pan out much.
No. He got cut. He's not on the Colts.
No?
I picked him up when Pierce was hurt because he basically took over when Pierce left. And then instead of
I'm looking at week 6.
Yeah, instead of playing him, they cut him from the team. I was like,
that's hilarious. I'll leave all that in. That's great. I didn't even notice it was week 6.
Yeah, that's why I picked him up, because I said, ooh, okay.
I assume you've already cut him as well then.
I did. I cut him immediately because the Colts cut him.
I was like,
I thought he was going to start. He went from starting to being on the street. So yeah, that's Amari Rogers' career pretty much.
Yeah, no, it's I love it. I love when you've got these guys who are at the end of rosters, the end of benches, that every time you look at their profile on Sleeper or on another app, it shows them wearing another team's uniform. Like we were talking about Edmonds a little while ago. Edmonds still has his Miami uniform on in his profile picture, despite the fact that he's been on 2 other teams since he's taken that picture.
Come on, Sleeper. Update your pictures.
All right. So luckily, we seem to have avoided most major injuries across the league this week, but there are a few guys that we should probably mention. Jerome Ford went down in the 4th quarter against Indianapolis. Pierre Strong got a bunch of run after that. I'm not really sure what Ford's long-term prognosis is, but that one bears watching. Most likely it'll be Kareem Hunt getting the lion's share of the work if Ford can't go.
Yeah, it seemed like they wanted to keep Kareem Hunt into the complimentary role, and they used Pierre Strong at like a 65% snap share once Jerome Ford went down. So I'm not sure if that was because Kareem Hunt was also limited on the week heading in. So it's possible that will flip this week and we'll see mostly Kareem Hunt, but something to note.
What Adam Schefter describes as
a low high ankle,
low grade high right ankle sprain that is expected to sideline the running back for 1 to 2 weeks. Okay. So we'll see him in 3 weeks. Tough sledding for the running backs in Cleveland this year. And so Zach Ertz went down this week with a strained quad. He's already been placed on IR. Luckily enough for Big, he just so happens to be rostering Ertz and McBride. So Trey McBride should slot right in and fill that role for the team, both being Arizona and Big's team.
Instead of the tight end splitting time, you might actually see McBride get the majority of the work and be a useful fantasy asset in standard leagues. I mean, he's already useful here, even if he's only playing half of the snaps.
Sticking with the tight end injuries, there was another one where Dawson Knox had an injured wrist. He dislocated his wrist, and he's going to have surgery on that, so he's going to miss some time. Unfortunate news for Judd there, but probably good news for Flinch, who's got Kincaid. Kincaid actually had a pretty good week. He had a 61% snap share, 8 targets, 75 yards. It's a pretty good day for a tight end.
Yeah, it is the best week of the season. So there's a good chance with the other tight end, Quentin Morris, also hurt, that you may see a lot of consolidation there for Dalton Kincaid this week.
One other tight end that did have an injury that you just reminded me of, Luke Musgrave, out with an ankle injury. He left the game after he took the headshot from Kareem Jackson that got Jackson ejected and suspended. Then he was listed with an ankle injury.
That's multiple fines and multiple ejections, and now finally a suspension for Kareem Jackson.
Well warranted.
Yeah, he's had some ugly looking hits this year, and NFL has finally had enough.
Well, hopefully whatever is ailing Musgrave, be it the ankle or a potential concussion, whatever it is, hopefully it's not lingering. More bad news for Big's team, or maybe mixed news if the Ertz and McBride thing happens to pan out well for him. But DK Metcalf missed this week. Metcalf has been listed on the injury report for a couple weeks now, and this is the first game that he actually missed. I think this caught a few people by surprise.
Yeah, he'd been battling rib injuries for the last few weeks, and then he added a hip injury this week, and I think maybe the combination finally decided to hold him out.
It's unfortunate to see him miss any. The only other player that I wanted to bring up while we're discussing injuries is Bijan Robinson. He obviously wasn't injured in the traditional sense. He was dealing with a migraine or something similar to that. They haven't really specified. He just woke up feeling off on Sunday, they said. I'm not entirely sure what to make of this, but it's an interesting situation that certainly bears paying attention to.
Yeah, the Falcons might be in some trouble for injury report manipulations, because apparently it started to happen on Saturday and they didn't put him on the injury report at all. So we'll see if they face any discipline for that. I'm sure fantasy managers and bettors are not happy.
No. And the bettors didn't even get their bets voided because he did play. He only played a few snaps. But that's a situation where if he doesn't play at all, most of those bets on most reputable books will just get voided out completely. But if he plays and only plays a couple of snaps, now then you're SOL, my friend. You're on the hook for that bet. The Bijan thing reminded me a little bit of what we used to get out of Percy Harvin, where Harvin would be fine, and then all of a sudden he'd just miss a couple of games here and there, or something similar to it.
Don't you put that evil on my Bijan Robinson, please. Please don't put that evil on. As exciting as he was in his career, yeah, the migraine thing was just unfortunate. Hopefully it's a blip on the radar for Bijan and he's back to normal this week.
All right, that about sums up the injury report for this week. Let's go to the matchups. Had a decent league median this week at 194.83, right around where we've been a lot of the time. Our highest scoring team this week was none other than Flea, who just made that big trade. She put up a 256.04, beating out Judd, who put up a 212.85. Both these teams over the median, so Judd gets the 1-1 split on the week. Flea gets the 2-0. The big separator in this matchup, because both of these teams put up some pretty impressive scores, the big separator was at the tight end position, I'd say. Flea had 60 combined points from Hawkinson and Waller, and Judd, who didn't have a bad week from his tight ends, but only had 35 from Taysom Hill and Cade Otton.
Yeah, tight ends definitely made a difference this week. She had the number 2 highest scoring tight end on the week in TJ Hawkinson, and the number 3 highest scoring tight end on the week in Darren Waller. Both of them right around 30 points. You're getting that kind of production from not one, but 2 tight ends. You're going to win most weeks. And
this is a matchup that has some pretty big playoff implications, specifically for Flea. She was 6-6 coming into this week. Getting the 2-win week puts her at 8-6. And obviously that's something that she both wanted and needed after, a little bit of a lackluster start and then having that Richardson injury, where she wasn't getting that top end quarterback play. Although Minshew this week with the 27 points, that's nothing to sneeze at.
Yeah, that, and she had the highest score of the week. She made up in points on everyone else in the league as well, moving up in the tiebreakers.
Having those points matters because I don't know why it seems to me that with the extra win or loss, the extra game against the median, it almost seems like it's a higher likelihood that we're going to end up with similar tied records at the end of the year. I know it isn't necessarily that way, but it seems to me like it should.
Dynasty Daddy's playoff projections have been really tight within a game.
Yeah.
From second to eighth have been basically within a game of the projected final record the entire season. And it's still like that. We'll get to that at the end, but yeah, it's going to be a very tight race all the way through the end of the year, and points scored are probably going to get somebody in the playoffs.
I just want to note a couple players from that big trade of Fleas were on bye this week. Dak Prescott on bye and DeAndre Hopkins on bye. But in her lineup this week, paying immediate dividends, Romeo Doubs and Evan Engram. Right in there, right off the bat, get you some extra points.
Yeah, she had the highest score of the week, and she didn't even have half of the players she traded for. And Bijan only had one carry. She still put up the most points in the league. I'd say her team is a lot deeper now than it was a few weeks ago.
The only disappointing thing for Judd here, he's got to wish that he had a third viable quarterback, because Joe Burrow being on bye this week, his super flex spot was filled by Jamal Agnew, who put up a 9.0.
We had too much Jamal Agnew this week.
It was so much Jamal Agnew.
Thursday night game was painful to watch.
It was a bizarre decision to target him 6 times. You got Calvin Ridley out there. You got Christian Kirk out there. Even Evan Engram is better. Jones is hurt right now, but man, why Agnew?
Yeah, I do not have answers for that.
No one has answers for that.
Almost cost him the game.
I hope you're proud of me. It's been almost a year and a half since I've made a Spiro Agnew joke.
You just ended your streak.
Yeah, that's not even a joke. That was just a reference. All right, we're going to move on. Congrats to Flea for the highest score of the week. Tough luck on Judd with the bonus loss. You'll get him next week. All right, our second highest scoring team this week was your team. You didn't have the highest score this week, but you got your 2 wins.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Talk about breaking streaks. I only had the second highest score to get 2 wins. Good thing I did, because I played the number 3 scorer on the week. And
I was going to say you had a 228.81. You beat out Flinch, who had a 215.39. So again, 2 good weeks here, 2 solid scores. Stop me because you've never heard this one before. But the way on your team was led by Deonta Foreman, who had a 35 for your RB1, and Jahmyr Gibbs, who had a 29.6 for your RB2. As Mel put in chat, another week, another massive running back score for your team.
Yeah, my running backs carried me to victory this week, which is the most confusing thing. This is clearly the darkest timeline, because Flinch's team was carried by his wide receivers, and my team was carried by the running backs.
I don't
None of this makes any sense.
The wild part of this is not only did you have 2 massive running back scores in your running back spots, you had 2 running backs in your flex spots on top of it. You had Henderson with a 14 and Warren with a 10 in your super flex spot.
I don't think I'm going to get 4 running backs into my starting lineup very often this year. So
no. Well, down weeks from Jared Goff and Tua certainly contributed to that, but you still managed that nice score. Over on Flinch's side of things, we mentioned it earlier when we were discussing the Knox injury, a big breakout game from Dalton Kincaid, his first-round pick this year. Nice to see the 23 points there. Not a whole lot of breakout games across the board. Lamar Jackson, obviously, with a massive 37-point week. Yeah, he was the quarterback 2 on the week. A nice performance there. Certainly helps getting that bonus win, but unfortunate that he ran into the buzzsaw that is your running back room.
The buzzsaw that is Deonta Foreman.
Our next highest scoring team was JMC with a 211.64, beating out Rugg, who had a 101.6. Obviously, Rugg on the tanking side of things, but a pretty big margin of victory for JMC there. He's over the median, gets the 2 wins this week. Overall, a nice day. led by Travis Kelce, who had 48.9 points on 13 targets, 12 catches, 179 yards, and a touchdown.
Yeah, what do we say every week? He's got two massive week-winning players, Travis Kelce and Tyreek Hill. They combined for almost 80 points this week, almost outscoring Benign Rug's team between the two of them. So if he gets just moderate contributions with the rest of his lineup, he's going to be over the median. He's going to get wins. And that happened again this week, as it happens pretty much every week.
That's pretty much exactly what happened, in fact. Yeah, he did have some down scores on the back end of his flex. He had a 5.3 from Murray and a 5.2 from Cooper. So, like you said, not a ton of depth there, but those big boom scores at the top certainly make a big difference.
Tyrod Taylor trade for a fifth definitely paid off this week.
Yeah, absolutely did. 22.16 for Taylor in the Giants' 14-7 victory over the Washington football team. I refuse to say Commanders. It's an awful team name. I can't wait till they change it. They're going to change it to something worse. It's going to be fantastic. Over on the other side of the matchup, pretty good game from Jordan Addison. He was the number one scoring wide receiver on the week with a 34.55. Our next matchup is Melcrisp with a 199.18, beating Criddle with a 146.02. Mel, the last team who made it over that median score this week, so he gets the 2 wins. Criddle, unfortunately, gets those 2 losses. Not a massive week from anyone in this matchup. Mel's team led by A.J. Brown, who continues his just stretch of just absolute dominance at the position. A good game from pretty much all the quarterbacks in this one, except for Sam Howell, unfortunately. Hurts and Allen with competing 25 and 26-point games. Mac Jones showing up big for Mel's team with almost 22 points. A down week for Mel, as we've been saying a lot at the tight end position. Stop if you've heard this before. Kyle Pitts, a little disappointing, only 3 catches, 47 yards. Anyone you want to highlight here?
I see Nate Atkins in the lineup.
That was way too much excitement for Nate Atkins in anything.
You didn't want to talk about him. Listen, Greg Dulcich back on IR. Adam Trautman, not a threat for targets. Nate Atkins, he's going to eventually emerge as their receiving tight end. It's going to happen.
We'll mark this prediction down now. I don't even know what to do with that information.
Ignore it. Definitely ignore it.
The one thing that Criddle has in his lineup that's impressive is his tight ends, Kittle and Goddard. They had 2 good games. McCaffrey, obviously, with his customary touchdown, the man scores every week. It's like clockwork.
That was the rationale behind that trade, the big trade that we did, where I got criminal speeder Chris Olave. He really wanted that second impactful tight end.
Yep.
Now Goddard and Kittle are carrying his team week to week. Unfortunately, he doesn't have enough depth overall to fill out the rest of the lineup, but he's got a couple of good quarterbacks. He's got a couple of good tight ends. Those are good foundation pieces. Next year, he just has to work on adding some more to the wide receiver room.
So I don't know how you were coaching your team, but ever since Goddard left, he's been on fire. So
that tends to happen as soon as I trade players away. So
there you go. Tell the league you're welcome again.
You're welcome.
Want to throw out this one? Jake Bobo with an 18-point game for Mel's team.
Jake Bobo, the slowest man alive, ran a 5-second 40 at his bro day. Done nothing but produce when given opportunities. In the preseason, he looked great. He finally got snaps now. Everyone assumed it was going to be Jackson Smith and Jigba, but really Jake Bobo filled that outside receiver role with DK Metcalf not playing this week. And Jake Bobo played well.
Yeah, he had the touchdown.
And Geno Smith was going to him in important situations, third down, stuff like that.
Maybe they've got the next Puka Nacua on their hands.
I wouldn't go that far, but, Jake Bobo is a fun name, so hopefully he's good.
So is Puka Nacua. That was the point. All right, our next matchup is Big Biscuits with a 190.49, beating out my team with a 120.36.
I don't know how you scored 120 points.
Well, it's worth noting that I had the number one quarterback score on the week. Mahomes had a
There you
37.86.
go.
That's pretty much
A
all
third
of it.
of a third of your scoring from one player. Okay, that makes sense now. I got it.
I managed to shed enough points that my superflex this week was filled. We got to ask Mel how he does this by CJ Beathard with a 0. I don't know how he selected Beathard over everybody else he could have put in with a 0, but that's what it was.
You had a lot of good options on your bench with 0.
Yep, a lot of good options. Could have put in Isaiah Likely, could have put in Lil Jordan Humphrey. I don't know. We were just talking about random tight ends. He could have put in Brady Russell. Yeah. But anyway, enough of naming the players on my team who got 0s. Let's talk about Big's team. He was just under that median score. So unfortunately, he only gets the 1 win this week, despite the fact that he outscored me by 70 points. We mentioned the injuries that he suffered this week, but he had some good games from some unusual places. Josh Palmer, again, you mentioned it before. He's looked good. A 22-point day from Palmer. So
he's been the most productive wide receiver of all the big receivers that he's traded for. Josh Palmer's been the one that's putting up points consistently.
It's true. No really big flash scores anywhere on his team. This is a lot like what we've talked about for the last couple of weeks. The lowest score in his lineup was an 11.0 from Musgrave, and outside of that, everything was above 14. But there was no big flash score, so it adds up, but not quite enough to get over that median score.
Got him pretty close, and got him at least 1 win on the week.
Yeah,
but,
a lot of consistency, no boom.
But he's got a very deep roster, so even with a lot of teams on bye, he still managed to put out a decent lineup, even without any real spike weeks.
When you look at the weekly report, it shows you who has the highest bench score for each position. He had the highest scoring bench quarterback, highest scoring bench running back, and wide receiver.
So it makes sense because he had a lot of scores in that 14 to 20 range, including guys on his bench. So they all scored very similarly.
Exactly. So just
if this was a start 20, he would have definitely had a good week.
Just a couple more boom games, and he's right over that median. He's right in the mix for maybe not the top score, but the second, third, fourth in that range. So moving on to our last matchup. Boy, I got to tell you, it's not a pretty one. Mr. Good News got the win with a 152.77, beating out Georgia Mike, who put up a week low of 69.45.
Thankfully, Mr. Good News had the bye this week, so got at least 1 win.
Good timing for him to have that big down week.
He got his free win.
So obviously, you heard the scores there. There's not a lot of big boom games to talk about. Anything you want to highlight here? I'm just going to throw straight to you because I think we can probably move on pretty quickly here.
Well, I see that Mel put Denzel Mims in the lineup. I assume that was for me. I assume he put that specifically as an Easter egg so I would see it and talk about it on the podcast.
I tried to move on as quickly as possible and not even notice that. I do note that he had that Georgia Mike has Jalen Reagor in one of his flex spots. I was not even aware that Reagor was still in the league until he caught a pass.
He played a decent amount of snaps, actually. Devontae Parker lost a lot of snaps to Jalen Reagor off the practice squad this week. Yeah, it was Devontae Parker's lowest snap share of the season because, of course, I just traded for him. So anytime we can get more Jalen Reagor out there, I'm sure that's good news for the vaunted Patriots offense.
He was within a point of Quentin Johnston, if it helps you feel better.
No, that doesn't help me feel better at all.
I do want to mention that 2 of Mr. Good News' 3 highest scoring players came over in a trade that he and I did very recently. Kirk Cousins and Gus Edwards were his number 1 and number 3 scoring players. So you're welcome.
Yeah, good thing he added that depth. Otherwise, he'd really be in trouble.
Well, even if he didn't have those players, he was still going to win this matchup by 40 points. So I think he'd have been all right.
It was a tough week. I expected there to be a little bit more down scoring based on the amount of teams that were on bye. But it seems like I was talking about last week, a lot of the depth has been consolidated into the top teams.
Yep.
So it makes it so they can more easily survive the big bye weeks like we saw this week. And for the most part, that held true. All the high scores were kind of concentrated.
Yeah, you're starting to see that more and more. I mean, every week we get a couple more players or, trickling towards those contending teams as well, which, that slow burn is just going to keep getting more and more pronounced as the year goes on. All right, so that wraps up our weekly matchup section. Let's move over to, as I put it last week, America's favorite segment and review our Dynasty Daddy playoff projection odds. Holding steady at the top, JMC with a 99% chance to make the playoffs. That's the highest we've seen so far, obviously. You're not going to get any higher than that, but last week I think it was 98%, so good for JMC.
He's starting to open up a little bit of a lead there at the top, and the rest of it is just kind of jumbled. He doesn't have a huge lead in points, but his points have been well-timed to get him just over the median several weeks. We've seen it now, where he's just barely cleared the median, or he's had a down week when he's had an easier matchup. So it's worked out pretty well for him so far.
And it's led him to that 12-2 record, so he's got a little bit of a buffer there as well in terms of just having that full 2-game lead in the standings makes a difference. So the next 4 teams after that are all clumped in between 75 and 83%. Judd at 83%, Flea at 78%, taking a big leap up this week. Mel at 76%, and Flinch at 75%. Those 4 basically grouped together in a tier.
Yep, we're seeing a lot of clumping now with the top 8 teams. All 8 teams have at least 8 wins now.
And we're still seeing those final projected records all very close. From 2 to 8, everyone is projected between 16 and 18 wins, which obviously 16 to 18 is just 1 week over the median in this league. So it's literally within, you could say, a game.
It's going to be a tight race. It continues to be every week we go through this, and every week there's not very much separation.
All right, so those are our top 5. And then the next 3 are Big at 66, your team at 63, and Mr. Good News at 59. Now, the difference here is Big's record is 10-4, and you and Mr. Good News are both sitting at 8-6 right now. So he's got that 2 full game lead, which is probably why he's got that slightly higher percentage.
But it's not a huge percentage because that's really only 1 week.
Yep.
One more 2-0 week from one of us, and then if he happens to get an 0-2 week here, it'll push everyone right back together again.
Yep. Obviously, the remaining 4 teams, it's listed as Criddle, my team, Rug, and then Georgia Mike, but we're all less than 1% chance to make the playoffs. At this point, it would take something otherworldly to happen for any of our teams to come back into it and to make the playoffs.
Yeah, Criddle is really the only team out of these 4 that has any chance of winning any weekly matchups unless you guys are playing each other.
Yep.
Because he's the only one that still has points on his roster. And the rest of you have done a good job shedding it down to nothing.
Well, that finishes up the playoff odds for this week. Up next, we've got an interview with another league manager. We were joined by Mr. Good News, had a nice chat, and here it is. All right, we have joining us tonight our 2021 inaugural league champion, Mr. Good News. This is our second Philly guy interviewed early on. I think we gotta diversify our invites here.
Well, you have to get us on early before we start losing more games. So right now we're kind of up. It's a good time to have me on. Love Criddle's interview too. Love the Philly love in the group. But thanks for having me on. Good to see you boys.
We appreciate you making the time to join us. Just like everybody else, it's been great to talk to people. We're really looking forward to talking to you here.
Yeah, looking forward to it. The thing is, I think you boys started this just so you can make more trades, based off of how many trades you facilitated. What does Oprah say? You put in the universe and it just happens. You watch the video and 2 days later you're making a trade. You don't even want to do it, but you just feel like you have to. Yep. Not bad. Not bad.
Every guest we have on, one of the 2 of us has a trade right after.
It's true. I say Mr. Good News and I got our big trade out of the way last week, so we're already done on that one.
Yeah, thanks for cousins.
At least Diggs is a monster.
Yeah, I love
Must
digs.
be.
Love
Yeah.
digs. And I know you know, you're in a couple leagues and you realize as you're negotiating a trade in a specific league that once you make that trade, you do have other players from that same offense, and you're like, oh no. Like as an Eagles fan, I go after AJ Brown. I realize I have Goddard and Swift. I had Swift as a Lion. Now he's an Eagle. Now I have Goddard and Brown. I'm like, oh no. And I also have Hurts. Pay attention. That's the advice I
I
always
mean,
give
it's a
people. Pay
super
attention when you're in
duper
multiple leagues.
stack.
This is what happens when you play in 600 leagues.
Do you know how many leagues you're in?
You know what? I meant to count for you guys because that question was coming. I didn't. So I know there's probably like 8 redraft leagues, 3 home leagues that I've been doing forever. All 2 are live. One's kind of a work league that's been hybrid into a friend/work league because guys drop out. You know, Dynasty just hit me like a ton of bricks. It's so addicting. And the sleeper app is crack. If you are a fantasy football fanatic and you realize how easy it is to toggle multiple leagues, to chat, every update, like they listen to you on Twitter or X or whatever, and they make those updates, and they're fantastic. The player history, like just going back and be able to see how many terrible trades you've made in the past. What kind of fantasy football fanatic doesn't just love that? So I started in 2019 with Dynasty, 2005 for football, fantasy football. I think you boys are on the same age. It was one of those like you're in college-ish and you're sitting around like, hey, like I know somebody that plays fantasy football. It sounds really fun. You want to try it? Like, yeah, I'll commit. So I raised my hand and said, I'll do it. We were on Yahoo at the time and didn't know what I was doing, kind of like a couple of the other people who were on. Like, we'll just figure it out as we go. Didn't realize that kick return yards and punt return yards were on. So, like, the league MVP was like Rock Cartwright from
Cartwright, yeah.
the Washington team.
I remember.
You take your lumps when you're doing new things. You make your mistakes and you learn from them. So needless to say, I was not the commissioner for year 2. Eventually we moved to ESPN. Other buddy took over. We've been doing it ever since. I don't know, what it was like 15, 16, 17 years, 150 years. I don't know how long it's been.
Yeah.
But, we're still a standard scoring league. It's crazy. Like I played with cavemen. We still have kickers and defenses, and the boys love their kickers. It's been like
no
8
accounting
years
for
running.
taste.
No, they're terrible human beings, and that's why we're best friends. Every year, like 8 years in a row, I've been shot down for like, hey boys, good kicker.
At least you're trying.
Cool. Yes, I'm doing my best.
So you said you were the commissioner that first year. We had Criddle on. He said he was the commissioner of his first league that he joined. So that's the two of you, both from the start, commissioner right away.
I don't know if you know anything about Philadelphia fans, but we're somewhat assertive.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
so
see that.
Probably something to do with it.
That tracks.
And that you said that league's still going. That's great right there. I love leagues that are running for that long.
It's been a little bit of turnover here and there. Having a live draft on Labor Day for years and years, and as we got married and stuff, eventually wives did not want that to happen, and then we started having kids and more. So we started past 2 years having it not on Labor Day, but it's still a live draft. It's an auction league. You know, we've adapted from the big board. We used to walk up and like write with Sharpie on, and it was like a 9-hour draft. Now we do it online. We're live, but we do it online, and we do it in like 2 hours, so we just drink and hang out more.
Nice.
Fun. You know, the root cause of fantasy football is to have fun, right?
Yep.
So that's why you're in 700 leagues. That's a ton of fun.
600, no, 700.
Yeah. I was just telling my co-host here before you came on, I was looking back over our old chat to see if there was anything like interesting or funny in there. And almost every single one of the trade negotiations that you and I have done has been one of us proposes a trade, and then it's either immediately yes or no. And if it's yes, it's like one minor modification and that's it. Our first trade on the eve of the 2021 finals, the first year that you won, you offered me your 2022 and 2023 third round picks for, you're going to love this one, Keyshawn Vaughn and Derek Gore. I declared that wasn't enough for me and asked for JaMychal Hasty as well. You said, yeah, that's fine. And the trade was done. It took all of 4 minutes, according to the chat logs.
The man has 600 leagues. He doesn't have time to negotiate over petty JaMychal Hasties.
Well, the funny thing with like this league specifically, as we've learned a lot in this league from trades and just seeing what happens. I mean, the tight end thing I was not prepared for, and I completely the first yearish didn't appreciate it as much as I do now. As you can tell by my tight end depth, that gets me like 2.65 points a week. And the funny thing is, like, I don't build teams running back heavy, and obviously you called that out earlier. So it's weird having this kind of team, but especially I don't know how I ended up with almost no wide receivers. Like, I don't know how I did that. A series of unfortunate accidents, I guess, being sweet talked by you two fellas. However it happened. But those trades, like, you have action in the league because you're realistic with what you're looking for. You're not coming in with I want your best player for 3 of my worst players and a 5th round pick. And where do you start from that negotiation, right?
Yeah.
So to credit to you both, you're fantastic. You talk about it. You're not pushy. I don't get 17 DMs in an hour. Like, hey, sent you a trade.
Well,
Are you sure about that? I've seen the way he messages people.
Sometimes.
I'm trying to be kind. It's your show. I'm the guest. But it's not, I don't take it as aggressive. It's never been, obviously we get deals done all the time.
Yeah.
And it's always, you're looking at what I need. And that's something that I'm telling you, like, out of 100 trades, 98 people don't know what you need. They're just sending you what they want. And it's just it's so annoying.
That's not how you get trades done.
Yeah, the trade negotiation starts with identifying what both teams are trying to get out of it and moving on from there.
It's so simple. And that's why we accept these right away, right? Like,
for me, 100%, it's like I look and say, would I accept this if I were them?
I mean, that's it, right? Like, if you're looking at it going, oh, this is crap. Like, I would be offended if I received this. Let me throw in a 4th round pick. Like, that's,
I mean,
just makes it more insulting.
But no, I feel like that's it. You do unto others as you would want done to you. So that's a great way to go. And that's why I feel like you, not only with me, but the rest of the league, and the conversation back, the feedback, right? Using DM saying, I think I was trying to get Herbert for me since the draft. And every once in a while you check in and just say, hey, buddy.
How you feeling?
You had a good mood today? But there's conversation around it. And when I explain what I want and what I'm doing, he's like, okay, either I can't do that right now.
I tried so hard to get another better quarterback. He's like, I'll do it if you have a better quarterback. I'm like, I'm gonna do it. I'll find one. I tried so hard.
You were literally negotiating with him, offering him my players.
Yeah, I was, because I know I could get him from you. So
that's what I was gonna say. He's like, what if I had this player? I'm like, well, you don't. He's like, well, what if I did? And I believe him. It was, the confidence was there. But that's the kind of stuff that's fun about fantasy football, right? Like, it's not real. So which one? Have fun with it.
Yeah, we're just playing for fun.
Most of the time, anyway.
He can't trade Herbert now. He's one of his best wide receivers.
He did throw a pass to himself. I was like, why does Herbert have a 10-yard reception? What did I miss in this game?
It's a great play.
Love it. Keep it coming, buddy. Keep it coming, Herbie.
Double points.
How did you come up with your team name for this league? Because as I've mentioned before, it is my favorite team name in the league.
Every time it comes up.
So I know some of us aren't big Seinfeld fans. I happen to have watched every episode, and it started when I was a kid watching with my parents, which I didn't get half the jokes.
Yeah.
But then watching in syndication and everything, my God, what a great show. And there's so many episodes, and I love the names in the league that we have. Like, every time I look in the chat, it just makes me happy. I was kind of in between two, and I felt pressured to name my team something, because Mel is very aggressive with his wants and needs in the league. So Little Jerry Seinfeld is one of my favorite episodes. Kramerica Industries. Like, there's a bunch of them. But it was either that or I love Uncle Leo on the show.
So words that have never been spoken before.
I think he's such an underrated character. He's up there. Yeah. Just him with the Jerry. Hello. So I was going to be Uncle Leo's face with Jerry Hello on there, but I think Little Jerry Seinfeld was just kind of my favorite episode, and the whole thing with training. And it's a lot. It's a lot to take in when you're watching the episode. Cockfighting, of course, is very illegal.
That episode goes 7 different ways.
Right. I mean, it wasn't anything slick about it. I just decided I liked that episode, and I thought, as far as a football team that you want to kind of be ferocious, a rooster.
Sure.
When I think ferocious, I think a rooster.
Goes with the Birds theme, you know.
Yeah,
Another Philly connection right there. You had to bring it up. He didn't even do it. You had to do it.
he's a matchmaker. That's how he gets these deals done.
This is right. Half the time I'm facilitating deals that don't even involve my team.
It's true. He tells me like once a week, you should check in on this. And I'm like, I should? All right. Why not?
It's like I'm telling you, he's got the trade wire tapped. If I'm talking to anybody else in the DM, he's DMing me, asking me about what I'm talking about with them. Like, how did you know that? So I'm pretty sure, I don't know if you're from the CIA or you're telepathic or just a really good guesser, but it's working well for you.
I do work for the government.
See? I'll tell you how all this free time.
I tell you, the thing you guys don't know is whenever I make a trade in our redraft league, he gets jealous. It's like, oh, I could have made that trade. Oh, I could have given him a better deal every time.
I get jealous of every trade in every league.
It's true.
That doesn't involve me. We talked about this earlier.
Yeah, trade FOMO is a real thing. I think we all get it. And if people are saying they don't, they're liars.
Yeah.
Like everybody sees that a trade has been completed. Like, oh no.
Yeah.
Is it me? Wait, I didn't even offer a trade in this league.
That's why every time one trade goes through, like 5 more right after it.
Yep.
It always starts that chain reaction.
It's awesome. It's fun.
Half the time he and I do that one fab for whoever. That's just to kickstart the rest of them. We get bored.
Like again, this whole podcast has just been about getting trades going, and if a couple bucks come your way here and there, so be it. It's all for the benefit of the league.
Every move he makes is about getting the next trade done.
I know. He plants seeds as he's leaving the first trade. He plants seeds for the next one. Like, you have 3 quarterbacks now. Do you really need 3 quarterbacks? Anyway, I'm going to get going, but I'll see you later.
Got to think multiple moves ahead.
Leaves his cell phone there, comes back. Stanza.
Bold of you to assume he's using his cell phone. He's on the app on the desktop. He's sending all those from the keyboard.
It's on right now in front of me.
How do you accept trades from the grocery store? Like, how do you negotiate when you're at red lights? How do you do all these things?
I don't leave my house. That's the trick.
Yeah, some kind of bunker.
We covered your team name. We were curious. How did you come up with MrGoodnews as your username handle, however you'd like to say it?
Truth be told, so growing up, my friends and I were big fans of wrestling. We grew up in what they call the Attitude Era and WWF, WWE, and we had a trampoline growing up. So what did you do when you were a kid? You're 10, 11, 12, and you had a trampoline, you were a fan of wrestling. You jumped on each other and smacked each other with pillows, whatever you can find, cardboard boxes. We did dumb things, but we set up an old VHS camera. And Jackass was a part of this too, obviously. Johnny Knoxville, Steve-O and such. But we would film just kind of crappy wrestling matches as kids. We had a blast. I mean, that killed the whole summer between playing sports and that. I had a wrestling character, but we only had 5 or 6 of us that would wrestle. And you would, sometimes as kids, your parents wouldn't let you come out that day, or you had to go somewhere. So sometimes we had to be creative if most of us were there. So MrGoodnews was actually an alter ego of mine, where I basically just put on a different shirt and put a ski mask on and wrestled as basically the same guy. Had some goofy moves and stuff, but it was the same guy, just different gimmick. And when we were going on Sleeper, I couldn't think of a name that I was like, all right, this is going to be something. I didn't know if it was specifically for one league or if it for all, I didn't know what I was getting into.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to put something that was kind of generic and fun. And I don't know why, but that popped in my head when I was trying to fill it out. I'm like, yeah, let's go with it. It's the gimmick, right? It's your alter ego.
There you go.
So, years later and 60 leagues down, still going strong. And the picture, the avatar of Surly Duff, actually from The Simpsons, obviously. But my first league that I was in, I called my brother. I was like, hey, I really want to get into Dynasty. I'm talking to my buddy at work. I want to get into it. Sounds great. Are you in? And he's not as a fanatic as me with fantasy football. He's like, yeah, sure. If you do it, I'll do it. So I found a random league, met a good dude, actually got connected with a good league I'm still in, still going strong. But the theme of it was voted on. It was like just drinking themes, like whatever you wanted to do, just had to be a drinking theme. Surly Duff fits my personality when it comes to just being sarcastic and not caring. So it really just happened to be that. Now I can't change it. I know in our league now it's obviously little Jerry Seinfeld, but I'm sure you see it popping around somewhere.
Yeah, when you go to the DMs, it shows the other one.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just funny like that. You don't know what you're doing until you look back. You're like, oh wow, it's been a while. Now this is who I am. Like I'm Surly Duff, and I present good news constantly. So can't change it.
How you feeling about the Phillies as a whole and the Red October thing? You enjoying it?
I think anybody that has a favorite team that you live and die on, every time they do well, you're up, and every time they don't do well, you're down.
Yeah.
And after 11-year drought, like last year was magical, kind of like the Eagles have been in the past. 2018 last year, you catch lightning in a bottle sometimes, and sometimes the firecracker pops in your hand, and sometimes you can actually get to see it go off into the sky. But right now,
I'm a Giants fan. I
good.
remember Justin Pierre-Paul. You're not kidding about the firecracker going off in the hand.
Too literal.
Between JPP and his 4-finger discount and Plaxico Burress doing Plaxico Burress things. I love your team.
Shot himself in the leg.
Yeah. Cheddar bobbed himself.
8
Mile reference.
Everyone comes here for the 8 Mile references. Yeah.
Yep.
That's what we're known for.
I try not to get into it. I'm friends with Giants fans. Like one of the guys in my home league of record, one buddy of mine, Giants fan, he's kind of surly about everything too. So, when you signed Dan Jones, I just sent him a message in the group chat. Was like, I'm so happy that you finally found your franchise quarterback. Many fantastic years to come. And he just basically said some mean things to me, and I haven't really said anything since.
Nice.
Let it play out.
It's a good Northeast exchange right there.
Yeah, that doesn't sound
right
unusual at all.
Yeah, I'm not from the South.
You said before when you were young, you played different sports. What sports were you into? What would you play?
So when I was little, my parents tried to put me in t-ball, and I figured out from an early age baseball was boring. So I played soccer growing up. Was on some pretty good teams. Played goalie mostly. Wherever the action was, I wanted to stay in the game, and goalie stays in the game, and I wanted to have a lot of action. Goalie's got action, right? Then I got into roller hockey in high school as I kind of got away from soccer, and we had like a club team that was really fun, won some championships. I'm not great, but it was fun to get. We basically had a group of friends that wanted to play. Then we found some other kids that were okay. Then we ended up being really good. So that was fun. I played like an adult roller league, which was actually a thing till that place folded. The building went out of business, and got in some ice hockey. And I wasn't an ice skater, so I basically learned on the fly how to ice skate and play hockey with actual hockey rules, not roller hockey rules. So I've been doing that. I was doing that before about 8 years ago. Changed hours at work, made it tougher to make those like 9:30, 10 o'clock games work. And then my daughter was on her way, and I decided I just wanted to take a break. And then, you both have, I think, 100 kids between the two of you, right?
Approximately.
Yeah, I've been keeping track. It's a lot. But
You're telling me.
idea, you think in your head, you think you are a different person than you actually can be. I believe they call it denial. Like, I can do all this. Like, and my wife's talking to me like, are you sure? Like, hon, I got you. I can do all this, all the things. And all of a sudden it's like 7:30. The kids are running crazy. It's like, you're not leaving. Like, all right. Maybe I shouldn't go. So we put that on hold. But I said my buddies and I, like, randomly were playing Top Golf a little bit ago. And I don't know if you've ever heard of Top Golf or played Top Golf.
Yeah.
But basically you're hitting golf balls off a roof into a field with nets. And it's kind of gimmicky, but it's fun. They bring you pictures, and
they just opened one like half hour from me.
I didn't know if it was a Northeast thing, because I think everybody that I know has been up in the Northeast with them. I think the South actually has real golf courses. Play real golf.
Goodness, really?
That's what I'm being told.
Jeez, how ridiculous!
I've seen there's a documentary on golf called Happy Gilmore that I watched. Apparently, there's live gators out there too. So if you do go out, be careful. make sure you're aware of your surroundings and
Mhm.
stay away, especially if you're a caddy, stay away from them.
The last golf documentary that I watched was called Caddyshack.
That's also a good one. That's also how to eradicate rodents from a golf course.
Yep.
If you want a how to. That was
Yeah,
before
it's about
YouTube,
pest
so
control and golf. Yeah.
Yep. You had to watch those old documentaries before YouTube to figure out how to do that kind of stuff.
So were you paying attention to the chat earlier today? How do you feel about Tim Burton and/or Batman?
Oh, good Lord. So the chat. The chat is a monster all within itself, and I do my best depending on my workload or if it's the weekend, like what I'm doing with the kids. I try to pop in and at least pick up the flavor of what's going on. And you just see me once in a while like drop a comment and I'm gone.
Yep.
It's like I run into traffic, I get bulldozed by traffic, and I'm okay enough to limp out away from the traffic, and I just like, all right, let me take 10 minutes and just see what happens, and then maybe I'll be back in the traffic.
This chat in this league is a full-time job.
Yeah. Once it gets going, it's going.
I feel like we need someone to take notes of the notes. Like, do we need someone to take the minutes from the day's chat?
You want the
Best-
Cliff Note version?
The best part about the
10 bullet
chat.
points.
The best part about the chat is none of it is related to football ever. There's no football, no discussion
discussed
of
it a single time.
football, fantasy football, nothing. It's
I can't wait for Big's interview because
that's what everyone's waiting for. It's going to be like 6 hours. We're not ready for that.
We're not cutting anything either.
Clear your weekend. You're
Scheduling babysitters for both of us.
I don't know. Like you said today, like some of it's meant to be kind of over our heads, but the chat might sit idle for 4 or 5 hours, and all of a sudden here comes a comment, and it's followed by 7.5 hours of other comments based off the one comment that didn't make sense to begin with. And I don't know how he does it. It really is an art. Like he's afraid of silence and just says, walks in a room and just says, "Hey, farts." And then 20 minutes later, everybody's just hustling, bustling to have a conversation about it. It's awesome. It's fun when it's fun, and it's stressful when it's stressful trying to keep up with it. But Beetlejuice is awesome. 1988. I actually did a 35th anniversary. I'm a manager by nature for work, so I prevent or promote synergy workflow. I celebrate birthdays, anniversaries like a boss.
A lot of buzzwords here.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, it's all fake.
Yeah.
A presentation. But a 35th anniversary lady started in 1988, so I just did a bunch of things like what were the top music hits or the movies. And Beetlejuice was actually in the top 10 grossing movies, box office grossing movies of 1988. So I had that fun fact just in my back pocket. But
I saw that comment in the chat. I was like, "What? That's a."
that's a big.
He popped
fact.
in, had something to say, and then boom.
I said, "Did he look that up and say, and then just drop it in there and disappear?"
Yeah, no, I was sitting there.
You had it ready.
Some system issues at work, and I was like, all right, I have like 15 minutes trying to catch up with the chat. Threw it in there. Got a email, had to deal with something. Came back, 5 minutes later, and you had moved on and on and on and on and on. So I just kind of, all right, I'm out. Yep, hanging on my boots.
That's funny.
But the Beetlejuice is one of those funny movies you watch as a kid, like it came out when you were younger, and you think it's one thing.
Yeah.
And you watch as a grown up, you're like, oh wow, this is different than I thought it was. And I'm uncomfortable.
You should show it to your kids, like, "Oh, this is a fun movie that I watched when I was a kid." And you're like, "Oh, you can't watch this. This is not for children. Why did I watch this as a child?"
My first thought was like, I watched this with my parents.
Yeah.
What's wrong with my parents?
That's what I thought when I rewatched Species. Yeah, I watched that when I was a kid, and I was like, why did my parents show me this movie when I was way too young?
That's one of those movies I think when we were a little bit later in our teenage years, we were like, oh, let's go to the movie store. It's not in the back section.
Yeah.
We can rent this one.
Because we're asking everyone else this, how did you get into this league?
Big got me into it. We were in another league that we started up randomly. He was in, I think, the third or fourth league I ever had on Sleeper. And
so you've been experiencing him for years.
That's why I can't wait. He's not like this in the other chat.
Yeah, that's what he told us.
That, yeah.
No, I mean, he's not on acid in those chats.
He gets to be his
But
true self in this chat.
Bring your whole self to work. But he sent me a DM. He was like, "Hey, do you want to be in this league? They want cool people. Like they want good people that are active." And I was like, well, I think I have like 4 leagues now or 5 leagues or something. Like, I think I should stop." So of course I joined that league. But it's one of those things that it's interesting. It's different. Every invite or everything, like, I shouldn't do this. And all of a sudden, like, how did I get here? And I'm in here, and all of a sudden we're 3 or 4 rounds into the draft. But you're in all these different leagues, and certain leagues stand out. And this was one of them, the roster and the best ball. I don't know why Mel is a nut if he wants to do manual best ball when the league has the best ball setting, but God bless him, he's doing it. Yeah. But between that and then obviously some of the characters started coming out, and come to find out, we're all like, it's the island of misfit toys, and we all just are quirky in different ways. And then we've had some turnover, but the people that we brought in, like JMC, you get legit competitors that come in here, and like if they don't, they're not as active in the chat because maybe they're busy and actual human beings are doing things.
Adults,
grown-ups, unlike us bottom barrel dwellers. But the it's a flavor that no other league has. So this league has really just ascended to the top of my fun list, and I think this podcast is perfect, and it's perfectly timed with how long the league's been around. We've made so many trades. We've had so much back and forth in the chat. So it's nice to see the other degenerates that you're playing with, and the people who, if I want to trade with someone, it's nice to know, like, oh, I kind of know this person a little bit more than just their avatar. I think it's going to be, hopefully, keep it going, like in the off season, breaking down different trades and news and stuff. It's pretty cool. I see you have microphones, so I'm assuming that you had something up your sleeve as far as the podcast goes for some time, but this is a great idea, and thanks, and hopefully keep it going.
Yeah, that was 100% the impetus behind it, right? We said, this is a fun league. How can we make it better? What can we do? Now, I don't know that necessarily us talking about it makes it better, but people in the league seem to enjoy it, and we get a kick out of it. So, I mean, we don't plan on stopping. We plan on doing even more this off season. We just we've been kicking it around for a little while, and then somewhere in the middle of this off season, we must have been bored and said, let's just do it. Let's just start recording stuff and see what happens.
We had been talking about it for a while, and then I jokingly said, all right, when are we starting? And he took it seriously and was like, all right, here, let's get it going.
I'm going to order a microphone on Amazon for $20.
20.
I was going to say, that's, you didn't send Jar the link, did you?
No, he
sent it to me.
It was 60.
Was it? All right.
Lightning deals, baby. But I know what happened now that you say that. So you bought these microphones. You didn't say when you bought them. So you had them, and your wives were like, you better use this or get rid of it. And you're like, all right, we better start this podcast right now. And then all of a sudden you're in the chat saying, hey, this is what we're doing. I get you.
Justification.
We all have bosses.
Got to write that expense off. This is a business expense now.
LLC. Aljar LLC.
I hear Delaware lets you incorporate for free. I'm going to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it's a fantastic state for all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. They have like half the LLCs in the country, so because you can register it there without paying any taxes, without being present, all that stuff.
Yep.
They know what they're doing.
Absolutely.
Yeah, no, they absolutely do.
That's fine. We're close to Philly, Baltimore, New York. We're all over the place. So Delaware's a great little hub. Love it here.
So you're in Delaware. I didn't know you were actually in Delaware.
Oh yeah, sorry, I'm in Delaware. I'm in the suburb of Philly.
Yeah,
so I'm like 45 minutes away from the stadiums and stuff. I'm not actually in the city.
Suburb of Philly, also known as a different state.
No, like middle to North Delaware is a suburb of Philly. Being an Eagles fan, my grandfather was actually drafted by the Eagles from Marshall, played for the Eagles, was a 2-time Pro Bowler, I think, or All Pro for the Eagles.
Oh, that's pretty awesome.
Mom, I had no choice. When I say I had no choice, like I had no choice. So it was in my blood, literally. And started watching as a kid. And I wasn't a huge football fan as a kid. I'd rather do other things. And as you start getting older and you start watching football more, like, oh, this is pretty cool. And then you realize you have lineage, and you're like, okay, I understand now. So, like I said, you don't know how far you've come until you look back and kind of understand. But I try not to be the prototypical yell in your face, aggressive Eagles fan.
You don't throw
Yeah,
batteries at Santa?
it was batteries at JD Drew, and I was at that game, and he deserved it.
JD Drew did deserve it. All right, that's
He
fair.
deserved it.
He deserved
he
all
did
the
us dirty.
batteries.
He did us dirty. I can go down the whole rabbit hole with baseball, but I won't.
We got time.
And Santa was drunk. My mom was at that game when she was a kid. And
She was
said
at
that
the game? That's fantastic.
She was at the game, and the Santa was like up in the stands, and he was stumbling, falling, and like he was annoying the whole section. And so that's why they were throwing snowballs at him. But everybody gets the bad rap of, oh, Philly fans are ridiculous. They threw snowballs at Santa. It was just a fan that was drinking at the game dressed as Santa.
Yeah.
And, the section took care of itself, which is what I don't know if you've been or heard stories about, going to an Eagles game. But if you're acting a fool, we will let you know.
Yeah, Philly fans get a bad rap, but it's really they just don't put up with shit like everyone else does. A lot of people let that slide, but not in Philly.
No, I've been to a couple different ballparks and stadiums where the crowd just doesn't seem. They're like, "Oh, that's rude." Like, yeah. well, stop it.
Like, somebody should stop that guy. No, we'll stop him. We got it. Don't worry.
Yeah.
With batteries and snowballs.
Yeah.
I just need to know. Like, I always thought it was in the age of like cameras and big bulky cameras that had those batteries in it. But someone hated this guy enough to I'd rather not take pictures. I'd rather just, I don't want to throw the whole camera because this thing was like $500, but I'm just going to take the batteries out of it, these double A's, and I'm going to throw them as hard as I can, 3 or 4, rows in front of me, down. He's in right field. So they had to, if you think about an outfielder where they stand to the fence, this person's like, I'm going to get him. Like that guy got us. I'm going to get him. Like the thought process there, I've always just wondered.
Well, I'm assuming there wasn't a lot of thought in that process. That's probably how you end up with batteries.
I wondered if later, like you're driving home, like, man, I wish I took more pictures. I wish I had those batteries.
I'm assuming they don't want those batteries back. Once you've crossed that line where you're throwing them.
Can't believe we ran into Mike Schmidt and the Philly Fanatic right after that. Couldn't take any pictures.
I think one of the few things that most Boston fans and Philly fans agree on is that they don't like JD Drew.
Yeah. Does anyone like JD Drew? Is he liked anywhere?
I don't know.
Ever been?
How do the Cardinals fans feel about it? I don't know. I don't remember how long he was there.
Cardinals fans are dumb. They just like
they're too easygoing. I don't understand.
That's America's greatest fans.
Yay! We're out of the house.
That's America's greatest fans you're talking about.
Getting shut out. You're just giving up dingers. Get mad.
We like hot dogs.
You were talking about how Delaware is a suburb of Philly, or the portion of Delaware that you're in. Delaware was originally formed when it was leased by William Penn from one of the dukes, and it was known as the Lower Colonies of Pennsylvania. It literally was part of Pennsylvania. It got split off into its own, I don't know, around like 1700.
It's funny because this area, New Jersey, is not connected to Pennsylvania. There's bridges everywhere.
No.
But Delaware is. So it really looks like that when you cross the state line and things. It's just, it makes it, like, I knew that, not off the top of my head like you. I'm not I'm a history guy. Grad. Right. You threw a fun fact, I think the first interview or something.
I do it all the time. They don't normally make the final cut. I don't think they ever make them out. They're not good audio.
I try my best to get them out.
I can't help myself.
We all love trivia and fun facts, right?
The knowledge is rattling around in there.
No,
it has to come out.
We don't all.
Well, especially I feel like it's a dad thing too. As you get more of a fatherly figure, like, I gotta just drop some knowledge without college on these kids.
Yeah.
Did you kids know? Like, Jesus. We know, Dad. You told us.
Unlike my kids aren't old enough to to be exasperated by it just yet. They're still interested when I come out with those facts.
Yeah,
now a couple of years,
and your kids are just like you. And last time I was over there, they were dropping facts.
Yeah,
I was like, no, you're going to have no friends in school. This is
You gotta have one. You gotta have one friend who lives across the country that you do a podcast with.
Yeah, exactly.
All I could think about, because you're in the Boston area, like you are Cliff Clavin, just sitting at bars going, little known fact there.
It's not the worst analogy.
Nailed it.
Were you a mail carrier too?
Up until very, very recently, yes. All right, now I gotta ask because Criddle tried to get us started on this. Do you have a hot take you want to get out before we close?
Oh man, that candy bar take that got out of control quickly, right?
You want to give us a candy bar ranking, or did we get that in chat? I can't recall who actually participated.
There's no wrong answer, right? Like
Sure.
Everybody's got their own flavor, and
I think they're
like
all
I'm not
wrong. That's what Criddle wanted. He wanted all the answers to be wrong.
yeah. Well, Al,
He's looking for controversy.
So Al's never had candy before. That's what you said, right? Like, ooh, what's a Hershey bar?
Hershey's the only
That's
one that I've
gotta-
had, and I know it's bad. I know that's not number one
Like,
because I've had that one. That shouldn't be anyone's number one unless you're 80 years old.
well, the Hershey factory made it their number one. There's Twix and Snickers and Milky Way. Like, some people like peanuts, some people don't. Whatever. I'm a chocolate guy, so any of those chocolate bars, like if around Halloween when your kids have all the candy in the bag, whatever. I'm putting my hand in, grabbing 2 or 3. I'm like, all right, what we got here? And probably gonna eat and enjoy whatever's there. So
Yeah.
I don't try to get too hot takey on things like that. No one wants to be the Colin Cohort of candy bars, but we get into conversations sometimes about like music and movies, and just kind of the top guitarists, top comedy movies, top artsy films, whatever. And some of those, like the Mount Rushmore kind of conversation, some of those spark some debates. But I really try not to be too hot takey. By nature, I'm kind of a facilitator of friendship, hence the commissioner thing.
Sure.
So I'll ask questions and I'll like, oh, that's a good point, and I'll like try to get it back and forth to keep the conversation going and maybe escalate a little bit, a little pot stirring. But as far as like starting it now, it's I try to keep my hot takes to when I'm with my friends and I'm angry at my own team and my inner thoughts are coming out. Like, oh, the Eagles may never win another game ever. They lose to the Jets and all of a sudden the sky's falling. Like, I won't let everybody see that. But on the inside, like, that's the conversation in the World Effing Champs chat that we have going. Let me ask you fellas, how long, I know we kind of covered how long you've known each other, went to college together, right? But did you put a date,
Yep.
like how many years you've actually known each other?
Be since 2005, so 18 years, I guess, at this point. This September 2005, we lived across the hall from each other that first year. It was my first year. It was what was it? Were you 2 years in?
I was there like 12 years.
I think you're
Van
2 years
Wilder
older
style.
than me, right?
Stenson Bennett. Yep.
Stetson.
I was 36 years old when I graduated.
He didn't even go there. He was just kind of hanging out.
Well, the last couple of
Somebody left
years,
the door open.
the last couple of years for sure, I was just just hanging out.
Guy on the couch.
I didn't actually enroll in any classes.
I think that's kind of one of the things, like as a host of a show, you guys kind of do a great job of facilitating your conversation where you want it to go for others. But, hopefully your guests will start pulling information out of you. So we get to see a little bit behind the curtain here at the Mighty Oz.
Oh, I can tell you one of the first leagues I ever played in, long time ago when I started fantasy football, like pre-2000. We had a diehard Eagles fan, and he just went down and drafted literally an Eagle every round. Quarterback, running back, receiver, tight end. And I saw him doing it, and so I snaked David Akers because this was, 25 years ago when we used kickers and defenses. And I took David Akers, and I forced him to take a different kicker. And he was so mad. I mean, just angry. And he sending me trade offers for David Akers. I said, no, never. I held him through his bye week. I'm like, David Akers, I'm not getting rid of him. I'm not letting you have all of the Eagles. I said, I hope I play you on the Eagles bye week.
Oh man, it had to be like what, 99, 2000?
Yeah, it was a long time ago. I've been playing for a long time. I taught him how to play when we got to college. I roped him into my league. I've had the same redraft league for probably 25 years at this point.
I'd just like to point out that you mentioned earlier you still play with kickers, and then he talked about David Akers there. We didn't eliminate kickers from our league until very suspicious time. It was right around when Neil Rackers retired, and I'm pretty sure that they were related because he drafted Rackers every single year.
Robo kicker. That was my guy.
So the first league that I was talking about, we used to give away trophies. ESPN, you could put somebody's name in a trophy, name a trophy, and we had the Neil Rackers Memorial Trophy, and it was the league MVP. The league MVP was a kicker every year. I'm like,
yeah, he had a couple years where he put up ridiculous points. He was scoring like 20 points a week as a kicker. It was insane. He would kick like 3 or 4 50-yard field goals every week. I don't understand.
I'm not kidding. We eliminated kickers like the year after Rackers retired.
I tried to draft him even after we didn't use kickers anymore. I said, can I put him in my flex spot?
Why can't I make him a tight end? I don't understand.
He certainly scored a lot more than tight ends.
But thank you for joining us. I had a lot of fun tonight. It was a good chat. I think we covered a good variety of subjects.
Absolutely. My pleasure, boys. I appreciate you having me. Good luck the rest of the year. And hopefully we, like I said, a couple different topics on these podcasts. And I think we're all enjoying them. So keep up the good work.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks
and oh God,
there he goes. We lost.
I was about to leave, and I got to leave anyways. But I was going to say before that, I know we just made the big trade. I really do hope it works out for you. Sometimes you make a big trade and you're like, whew, thank God I got out of that one. But this time I'm like, you know what? I really want it to work out for both players.
Yeah, both sides, right? Both sides.
Yeah.
Hopefully you get what you are looking for, and hopefully I don't get whomped by Big and all those JMC players at the top.
It'll be fun to watch you guys duke it out once the playoffs start.
I'm gonna get killed.
That's the spirit.
Go Chubb. But anyway, yeah, I'm just glad I didn't lose anybody this week. It's a big week.
It's been a tough year for the injuries.
Keep fighting.
Yeah.
But anyway, thanks, boys. Appreciate you having me on.
Thank you.
We lost him.
Oh, we did? Dang.
Yeah. He covered his head and then he was gone.
I wonder if his computer's done updating.
I think it's updated. Shut him off.
Oh, we'll keep all this.
We lost.
See if we can get it back in here.
I just saw you cover your head and then you were gone.
That's actually how I disappeared. It's a magic trick.
It was like, no.
My phone just said, like, you want to use Siri? They kicked me out of Zoom. I'm not sure what's happening. I'm not 100 years old. I'm okay with technology. I don't use a laptop. I know, Al, you're a great editor, right? Editor-in-chief of this fine podcast. So I'm sure that you'll cut this up, slice and dice, or leave it in. Who cares?
No, I'm leaving that all in. That was good.